Despite your very best efforts, your bread has gone slightly stale. Now, don't throw it out, because there's actually a lot of things you can do with your stale bread to use it and to not throw it out and to save some money. So here are my best tips. The first one may not be so perfect for a bigger bread like this. This is obviously the heel, or whatever you want to call it, of a bigger loaf of bread. And I've kind of actually let it go stale a little bit on purpose so that I could do this video, but it happens to us that we just don't go through the entire loaf of bread and then we have this piece of bread that's left over. If you have smaller breads, or let's say bread rolls, I have a recipe for a German crusty bread roll recipe that I'm linking down below. Or if you have something like soft pretzels or smaller breads, you can always sprinkle them with a little bit of water and reheat them in the oven at 350 degrees. That will freshen up the bread. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to taste like it's fresh from the bakery or freshly baked, but it actually will do the trick just for that. And I actually often freeze smaller pieces of bread like that, and then I reheat them in the oven and crisp them up. So that's the first thing you can do. The next thing you can do is you can just cut very thin slices and fry them in a cast iron skillet, or just in any other skillet, in your favorite oil, avocado oil or olive oil, and then you just sprinkle it with some salt and maybe a little bit of garlic, and you can eat that on the side with your salad and your main dinner, or like a soup. You can also cut this piece of bread into smaller cubes, drizzle them with olive oil, toss them a little bit with olive oil, and then roast them in the oven at 350 degrees until they're kind of brown and crisp. And then you can use them as croutons for your salad. They're fantastic that way. Talking about salad, you can also just cube really stale bread. This is perfect for this next recipe, this Italian panzanella, which is like a bread salad, and it was probably invented because people had stale bread, didn't want to throw it out, thought about, okay, what can we do with it? And basically what it is, it's a salad with some tomatoes and, you know, other ingredients that you like in your salad. You toss it with your vinaigrette, and there is a really rustic, kind of more hearty salad rather than the green salad. Something that I often do apparently is I cut the bread in bigger chunks and toast them in the oven, and then I can do a few things with them. I mean, I can just like let it dry, but I like the toasted flavor a little bit better. And then I just either stick them in my high-speed blender and make breadcrumbs. You can also, if you don't have a high-speed blender, you can simply use a grater. You'll have bread pieces flying around your kitchen a little bit if you do that. So the neater method is to put it in a food processor or in a blender and make breadcrumbs with it. And then the breadcrumbs you can use for breading your schnitzels, or using them in, I have a salmon patty recipe. So if you're making any kind of meat or something like in a patty or in a cake, and the breadcrumbs give it a little bit of a lighter texture and it's not quite so dense. So that's always perfect, and I'm always using breadcrumbs for anything and everything. And you can even use it for your pasta casserole and sprinkle it on top, and that's just going to make a super fantastic delicious crust. Here I have some slices of my whole grain German bread that I have dried, and what I often do, instead of just toasting it in the oven, I have a bag like this. A lot of things going on here. I have a bag like this with a drawstring that I made from a simple IKEA linen kitchen towel. I have that hanging on the inside of my cabinet, and all I do is I put these pieces in here, and because it will hang there and it's not protected, the pieces of bread will dry out and then they will last forever. However, one of the things, and then I can make breadcrumbs with it. However, with this sourdough bread, the breadcrumbs are going to taste a little bit on the sour side, so I recommend using something a little bit more like this. What I also can do is use these pieces, dry them, turn them into breadcrumbs, and then put them back into my bread recipes. And stay tuned for that recipe, which I'll be linking up here once I have that video up. You can also cut this bigger piece of bread in chunks of this size, and then you make a very simple bread pudding. I have an entire video dedicated to a pumpkin sourdough bread pudding, which we make in the fall. However, you can make any bread pudding, just sprinkle some milk egg mixture over it and bake it in the oven, and it's fantastic, and you won't even know that it was stale bread. Actually, stale bread soaks up the liquid a little bit better than if you use fresh bread. If you do have a bread like this, you can also cut it in thinner slices and use it for French toast. I mean, there's so many things you can do. You just dip it in a milk egg mixture and fry that in the pan, and there's your French toast. And obviously you can cut the pieces a little bit smaller and turn it into your Thanksgiving stuffing, either inside of your turkey or you bake it on the side. And I also have a recipe for that I am linking up here. Lots of ways to reuse stale bread, and if you're wondering how do I keep it fresh in first place, because I'd rather eat it fresh than stale, I have an entire video up here in which I talk about my 9 favorite ways how to keep your sourdough bread fresh. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you over in that video.